Tell me if this sounds familiar. A character hears a strange noise, decides to check it out,
Hello?
which ultimately leads to their demise, leaving us, the audience, to question their irrational decision-making.
Hey, Pat, come look at this.
What? No!
But decisions like these are common in horror films for a reason. They essentially act as vehicles to move us towards a scare. But what happens if you remove those decisions, and every character acts rationally to the situation? Well, this might be hard to do in a creature feature,
But I'm not doing that. He said, no, I'm doing a movie about paranoia.
and that means the characters and their interactions suddenly become crucial to the film.
You asshole.
You'd have done the same thing.
Don't argue with him.
The creature in The Thing is only visibly on screen for a handful of moments, so for the majority of the film, we're only watching the protagonists.
Cheating bitch.
And while Carpenter didn't need every character to have distinct characteristics, he knew their relationships with each other would drive the tension of the film.
John, originally, I thought it was a great instinct. He'd never done it before, but to put this group of 12 people together and then try and figure out what the dynamics were going to be between them, you know, who didn't like who felt, you know, who would react this way in this circumstance. And we came up with a lot of very interesting stuff in that process.
And establishing these dynamics early in the film was crucial, because it allowed us to see how the characters change as the film goes on and the situation gets worse.
I ain't going with it. I'll go with Child. Hey, fuck you, Palmer!
The nature of the monster causes each character to become more paranoid and ultimately isolated, and when combined with the hazardous environment of the Arctic, they suddenly find that even in a room full of people they know and depend on for survival, they're actually on their own.
I don't want to stay out here anymore. I want to come back inside.
The movie's about, on a psychological level, is about isolation.
This is perhaps why the crew chooses MacReady to be their de facto leader. He's the most isolated in the group, not only on a personal level, but on a physical one. While the rest of the crew lives in dormitory-like living accommodations within the compound, MacReady lives outside the compound in his own quarters, allowing him to be more objective and rational in his decision-making.
MacReady, for all his isolation as a character, for all his problems, is someone who is a realist. He's grasping the situation and trying to find a way out.
Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired.
In most other horror films, we know who the killer is. Even if we don't know their physical identity, we know where they are, and even see through their eyes as they stalk their victim and prepare to attack.
We weren't doing anything. We were just messing up.
But in The Thing, the characters don't know who's normal and who's a copy, and with the creature's ability to perfectly copy its host, Carpenter didn't want anyone's acting, no matter how subtle, to give away any clues. So to solve this, he didn't let the cast know who was infected until the immediate scene where it's revealed.
Clear! Clear.
We didn't know whether we would know whether we had been taken over, because it takes you over so perfectly.
If I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know if it was really me?
This allowed the cast to come up with their own interpretation of their characters' actions in the script and formulate their character choices on their own.
I felt my character, Dr. Norris, knew unconsciously that he had been infected by the thing. And in fact, in the sequence when they're trying to decide what to do, they asked me. And my character said,
I'm sorry, fellas, but I'm not up to it.
Directing the cast in this way ensures that the audience can't read into any clues, which is why the tension in The Thing works so well, because we subconsciously put ourselves in the same shoes as the characters, sorting through numerous red herrings to try and figure out who the creature is. Who got to the blood? Why was MacReady's jacket out in the cold? And who did the dog visit on the first night? These questions cause the tension to build as we become more suspicious with each innocuous question or audible footsteps in the hallway. Because
I think that's what makes The Thing great, is you don't know. What if this already happened? Are you? How would you know?
this is where I think the majority of film critics, and in particular Roger Ebert, got it totally wrong. In a snippet from his review, Ebert wrote, "Carpenter allowed his characters to wander off alone and come back with silly grins on their faces until we've lost count of who may have been infected and who hasn't."
Somebody in this camp ain't what he appears to be. Right now, that may be one or two of us. By spring, it could be all of us.
but he completely misses why the film feels so tense. If we knew who was a copy, then the blood testing would play out totally different, as it would only have purpose to the characters and not to us, completely eliminating all suspense from the scene. And with him and many other critics complaining about the way the characters kept splitting up, you really have to wonder if they understood the point at all, because to me, that's the greatest part of the group's setting.
That was one of those things out there, trying to imitate him, Gary.
I don't know who to trust. Trust's a tough thing to come by these days.
Whether the characters decide to split up or remain in a group, they still face a threat. It's perhaps the strongest psychological aspect of the film, and one that we, the audience, must also subconsciously decide. There is strength in numbers, but that also makes it much more likely that you're in the presence of the creature. It could even be standing right next to you.
Get me the hell! Come on, get me out of here! Come on, get me out of here!
This is why so many of the characters end up splitting into smaller groups or going on their own. But this also comes with its own inherent risk. Splitting up makes it less likely that you'll encounter the creature, but also makes it easier for it to overwhelm you. Both decisions are smart and rational in their own way, and this is how Carpenter creates fear with smart characters. They make smart decisions. When they suspect MacReady is infected, they isolate him outside the compound.
MacReady? He's one of them. When do you think it got to him?
I don't know.
And after killing a monster with the flamethrower, they understand it has a weakness to fire, and so MacReady performs a blood test with heat to see who of the remaining crew is human.
Crawl away from a hot needle, say.
But despite these decisions, the Thing is still able to outsmart the crew, slowly picking them off one by one. The specifics of the creature are left purposely vague, but we can assume it gains the intelligence of whatever it assimilates, meaning the longer the film goes on, the smarter it gets.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Which can be directly compared to the characters, who get more paranoid as their suspicion builds and as they continue to lose sleep.
How long were you alone with that dog?
I don't know.
And in the end, it's the crew that slowly begins to act more like the monster, while it begins to act more and more human, making it impossible for the crew, and for us, to tell who is who.
Have you come across Fuchs?
It ain't Fuchs.
The Thing is a masterclass in tension and how to bring the audience into a film. I'm glad so many people appreciate this film now, and it's finally getting the acclaim it deserves, because it's truly one of my favorite films of all time.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
I'm Luke.
And when you find the time,
Thanks for watching.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter
Tied to this fucking